In response to the question I posted on Instagram, what's the biggest challenge you're facing in your spiritual life at the moment? Somebody said, so much, doing my best to live in Dharma. And then I asked them to elaborate, and they said, this is so kind of you. I love your podcasts. Then they posted the Ikigai diagram and added, it's challenging because in my holistic vision, I feel kind of stuck. I feel I made that much mistakes that it's not my past, it becomes my forever present. Weight of vision being so much of heavy that I need to balance with action. I'm aware of that and I'm living a normal way of life. I just don't want to waste this incarnation, you know? I do see that sometimes we do grasp truth under our own perspective, and most of the time things aren't as it seems. Indeed, truth is truth, but there is always degrees to truth. I saw a pattern where spiritual people would complain about other people not being spiritual, but then everything is spiritual. Same way that everything is under dogma for religious people. I hope you understand the point I'm trying to make. P.S. I admire the way you talk. This is very neat, sophistic. So that's all lovely. Thank you very much. Now, there's two things here. And so let's look at the first thing first. So the first thing is this Dharma and Ikigai, which are very similar when you look into them. Now, if you don't know what Ikigai is, and I knew a bit about it, but not too familiar. It's generally represented by a diagram, like a Venn diagram, with three overlapping circles. On the top you have love, what you love. On the bottom you have what you can be paid for. And then to the left you've got what you're good at. And to the right, what the world needs. And if you get those three circles to overlap, in the center of the overlap is Ikigai. And there are variations to it, like where what you're good at and what you love cross over is passion, where what you love and what the world needs, where they overlap is mission, where what the world needs and what you can be paid for, where they overlap it's vocation, and then what you can be paid for and what you're good at, where they overlap is profession. But it basically adds up. Let me read you the definition. Ikigai is a Japanese word which translated literally would mean what is worth living for. It's a practical tool for all people who want to discover the meaning of life and what makes you wake up with excitement each day. Now, a definition for Dharma, there's no strict definition for Dharma. Dharma is originally a Hindu word, but I think it even predates that. It's a very old word, and people often confuse it with karma, dharma, karma. It's used interchangeably. It's kind of, because it doesn't have a very strict definition, you can use it whatever way you like. It's like a Swiss Army knife of spiritual expressions. The one that I think relates to Ikigai is, the path to a balanced and meaningful existence generally requires the holistic pursuit of right actions, material security, material happiness, and spiritual liberation. So it's, you can see how the different things, then they need to kind of come together. It's funny, whenever I say Dharma, it always sounds like somebody from the north side of Dublin calling up the street after somebody called Dermot. Dharma! And that's the same with karma. I always think they're calling Carmel. Carmel! And while we're on the subject, Kundalini always to me sounds like Con Delaney. Irish name, first name Con, second name Delaney, Con Delaney. And then Krishnamurti, always, whenever I always hear Christy Murphy. Anyway, I'm getting off the topic, but it always makes me smile. I think the main thing here is for this person, the real line that stood out for me was where they're saying, I don't want to waste this incarnation. Well, everybody has that feeling in some way or another. They mightn't put it in those words, but they sort of feel like they don't want to waste their life. And it's a very easy thing to do, to waste your life. You probably know lots of people who've just sort of slept-walked through their whole life. And you can kind of see it at some point, maybe towards the end, if they're lucky, they'll kind of go, what's happening? Where did it go? Where'd the time go? Where did my life go? They're always putting memes on the internet of not memes, but, top 10 things people who are near the end of life say they regret, that kind of thing. So the fact that you are saying, I don't want to waste this incarnation, that's great. And these different structures, Ikigai, Dharma, doesn't matter what structure it is, they're all beautiful and they're all helpful, but they're all old. And there's great wisdom in things from the past. I'm always going on about the Tao of Being and how I get so much out of it. And that's like a 2,000 or 3,000 year old book. It just speaks to me. But it's the particular translation of it that speaks to me. But you have to remember that you are the latest iteration of consciousness. Because the thing to get is that these structures are just that. They're not rules that you have to follow. There was a time when they needed to be followed, but not now, because life is very messy now, very complicated. And you are the latest iteration of consciousness. You're the most up-to-date version, the most evolved. I know it doesn't feel like that. It certainly doesn't feel like it to me, but we are. And you can take the wisdom from these structures, and when you hear them, something will resonate with you and go, oh, okay, Ikigai, that makes sense. The coming together of all these different things, holistic approach, beautiful. And Dharma, get all these different things to come together, living the essence of who I am, beautiful. But remembering that there's never been a consciousness like yours before. And how you interpret, how you interact with, how you embody these things is of utmost importance. No one else can do it like you. You only have to look at Tibet. It's a great example of ancient civilization. Brilliant truths, fantastic rules, so beautiful, so spiritual, so wonderful. Yet, when the Chinese decided to invade, they couldn't do anything about it. And I'm not saying I don't know what they should have done, but it's just a good example of the modern world, the world you were born into, the world I was born into, is complicated. And we have to take the past and forge the new with it, bring it into the new consciousness. That's no judgment on Tibet, but Tibet's a really good example of meditating and withdrawing, and it didn't work for them. Maybe there's a bigger picture there I can't see, but for me the main thing is that's all beautiful. Meditation's beautiful, spiritual life is beautiful. It's all gorgeous, but there has to be a way of moving in the world to take care of everything. So when you look at these old structures, remember that they're old, and it's how you apply them that makes the difference. That's how you you extract the wisdom out of them and you apply them now. And because you're at the cutting edge of consciousness, it's always going to be messy, it's always going to be a bit awkward, a bit difficult, a bit fuzzy around the edges. So if you know that there's never been a consciousness like you before, then you can view all these old ancient structures and not let your mind get in there and add to or create this idealized version of you that you should be living. And if you're not living it, you're failing. Don't let your mind do that. Take the wisdom, have it as a general thing to aim for, and your life will go more in that direction. But to kind of sit in the power that you are of, I'm the latest version, and it's never been done this way before. So the way you do it. And then the second thing you were asking about, spiritual people complaining about other people not being spiritual enough. That to me always looks like loneliness. The normal, everyday loneliness that everybody has. That we look out and the outside world doesn't reflect who we are on the inside. And there's no sense of connection with it. And we feel like strangers in a strange land. Now, whether that is, I love train spotting, I love pigeons, I love flowers, and nobody else seems to love them like I do. I love teddy bears, and nobody seems to be into it as much as me. It doesn't really matter what. And the spiritual version of that is like, why can't people be more spiritual? Why can't I talk to people who are who are on the same page as me. It comes from that feeling of loneliness, I think. When you recognize that, I mean, the benefit of being interested in spirituality and consciousness is that you have a much better chance of seeing it for what it is, which is loneliness. And the more you stop looking outside yourself for any deficit you feel like you have on the inside, like I need people to talk to me in a certain way so that I can feel a certain way on the inside. I mean, consciousness and spiritual life will always pressure that, will always push you to see that that's not true, that you've got everything inside you all the time. It's just a matter of whether you can access it or not.